Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really cracking the code on billion-dollar blueprints. We're talking business models, pricing strategies, and it's all sourced directly from the Y Combinator elite. Yeah, this isn't just, abstract theory. We're digging into the actual hard data from the YC Top 100 list. We want to find out exactly how the biggest winners built their growth, structured it, our mission, to give you a shortcut, basically, to understanding the playbook these really high-return companies use.
Absolutely. And what's so critical here, I think, is realizing that a lot of founders fail. Well, it's not always because the product is bad. Often, it's because they haven't picked a winning structure, a successful model for revenue. The core advice that comes out of this source material is pretty clear. Don't waste time trying to invent some brand new way to make money. Just copy a proven business model. Then innovate like crazy on the product itself.
Okay, so let's talk proven models. The data points to, 9 core ways? Wow. So, okay, if you combine just those three SaaS, transactional and marketplaces, that's 67%. 67% of the entire YC Top 100 list. That concentration is just huge. So does the data suggest maybe these three are just easier to start? Or do they just scale way faster once they find product market fit? Why is it so much harder, apparently, for something like advertising? That's only 3%, you said.
It's probably a bit of both, but I'd lean towards scaling. To really understand the massive value creation, we need to look at the power law effect. Get this, 50%, half of the overall value of the entire top 100 list comes from just the top 10 companies. So if you want to be a massive outlier, you kind of need to pick a model that allows for those huge returns.
Okay, the top 10. Let's zoom in there. And yeah, the picture totally shifts. It's not just about the number of companies anymore. It's the sheer value. And marketplaces. Suddenly, they just dominate the conversation. 5 of the top 10, we're talking Airbnb, Instacart, DoorDash, OpenSea marketplaces.
Right. Marketplaces, even though they're only 14% of the companies on the list, create 30% of the overall value. What makes them so powerful is they tend to become these winner-take-all businesses. Once they hit a certain scale, the network effects are just massive. Every new user makes it better for everyone else exponentially. If you need a contractor, you go where the most contractors are. Simple as that.
That winner-take-all thing is powerful, definitely. But the sources also mention the big challenge, right? Marketplaces have that classic chicken and egg problem. You have to somehow solve supply and demand at the same time. You can't just sit back and wait for the network effect magic.
Absolutely. It's a huge hurdle.
Yeah.
And right up there with marketplaces in terms of value creation are the transactional businesses. 3 of the top 10 things, Stripe, Coinbase, Brex, they generate 29% of the total value.
Yeah.
And the key insight for them, the really crucial thing, is they win by being directly in the flow of funds. Money literally moves through their platform. That inherently makes them infrastructure.
Right, infrastructure. And becoming infrastructure, well, that's the ultimate stickiness, isn't it? Trying to rip out Stripe if it's your main payment processor. That's not like a quick fix. It's a major engineering headache. They solve what the source calls a top 3 problem, basically. Their service is so critical, your business just can't run without it.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with advertising. We all know Google and Facebook are massive, right?
Yeah.
But the advertising model barely shows up in this YC Top 100 data. Why? Because it seems to require insane organic virality. You basically need to become a top 10 site on the internet, like a Reddit or a Twitch, attracting millions organically. If your product doesn't naturally do that without dumping tons of money into marketing, you probably shouldn't choose the ad model.
Okay, so if those 3 SaaS, transactional marketplaces, are the big winners, let's flip it. What models tend to fail to scale and why? We see certain ideas struggle constantly, things like services or consulting businesses.
They scale with people, not software. That means low margins, non-recurring revenue. It's tough.
Right. And similarly, affiliate businesses, they're just too far removed from the actual transaction. Revenue is slow, unreliable, often low margin. And traditional hardware, low margin stuff, needs huge capital, takes ages. But wait, the source material also listed hard tech and bio among the 9 successful categories. So what separates a struggling hardware company from a hard tech winner like, say, Cruise or Boom?
That's a really key distinction.
Yeah.
The difference is the moat, the defensibility.
Yeah.
Low-margin hardware often fails because anyone can copy it. But the hard tech winners, they succeed because they rely on such intense technical innovation. We're talking deep science, maybe decades of R&D. That barrier to entry is the moat. It protects them from copycats, lets them charge way more because the value is unique, non-replicable. They don't have to compete on price alone.
Got it. That makes sense. And that brings us nicely to maybe the core requirement for most winners, recurring revenue. It gives you predictability, helps you understand your finances, right? And critically, it gives you a higher CLV, customer lifetime value, compared to your CAC, your customer acquisition cost. If your customers stick around longer, paying you month after month, it's easier to justify the cost of getting them in the first place.
Exactly. But, and this is a huge but, the predictable growth completely depends on retention. And this is where the cold, hard math really separates the companies that scale from the ones that just collapse inward.
Okay, give us the numbers. Let's hear it.
Okay, look at churn. Let's say your product has 95% monthly retention. Sounds pretty good, right? Only 5% churn each month. But over a year, you lose 46% of your initial customers. That's a huge hole to fill just to stay flat. You need to acquire almost half your base again. Now, drop that retention just slightly to 90% monthly. Only a 5% difference seems small, but it's catastrophic. You lose 72% of your customers in a year. You end up with only 28 out of your original 100. That tiny shift in retention is literally the difference between scaling and shrinking, between life and death for startup.
Wow. Yeah, that puts it starkly. Okay, so assuming you nail that high retention, you need that defensive barrier. The moat, we talked about network effects for marketplaces and technical innovation for hard tech. What about lock-in? That seems key for transactional and those sticky sauce of businesses.
Lock-in, yeah. It basically means the cost or pain of switching away from your product is just greater than the cost of staying, even if you raise prices. Think about Stripe again. Ripping out their code isn't just changing payment providers. It means rewriting core billing logic, APIs, probably redoing internal compliance stuff. The effort is so massive that once you're integrated, you're effectively locked in. Stripe becomes essential infrastructure.
Makes sense. And the sources also mention economies of scale as a moat, massive volume driving down costs per unit, like DoorDash or Instacart in dense markets. And finally, organic distribution through virality, where users bring in more users for free. Huge advantage if you can get it.
Right, so that kind of covers the structural blueprint, the business model, and how to defend it. Now let's pivot smoothly into the second big topic, pricing. And it's really important to see pricing not just as this thing you have to do, but as a critical tool, a tool to help you learn faster, learn who really wants your product and how much value they actually get from it.
Okay, pricing insight number one, according to the source, you should charge. Sounds obvious, maybe. But apparently, it's the most common mistake founders make. They're just scared. Scared the customer will say no, so they can give it away for free. But charging, that's the only real binary proof, isn't it? Are people willing to actually open their wallets, or is the value just not quite there yet?
Precisely. And the Stripe example illustrates this perfectly again. Remember, they deliberately set their price high, 5% per transaction, when competitors were around 3%. They weren't trying to be the cheapest. They were testing. Testing if the speed of setup, the quality of their docs, that whole developer experience, was it worth a 2% premium?
Okay, but hold on. Stripe feels like maybe an exception. Most founders probably can't afford to charge more than the big guys right away. What was their real secret there?
The secret was knowing their customer. For their target user, the engineer, the founder doing the setup, that extra 2% cost was nothing compared to saving weeks or months of dev time. Which highlights insight number two. Don't overthink the exact price, find the order of magnitude. Don't waste cycles debating $10 versus $15 early on, or if you're charging $10, but customers would actually pay $100. Pricing isn't set in stone, you can change it, but being off by a whole order of magnitude, that can kill you.
Right, which leads naturally to insight three, you absolutely must price on value, not on cost. So many new businesses fall into that cost plus trap, right? Figure out their cost, add a flat $10 markup, done. But that completely ignores the huge perceived value the customer might be getting.
Exactly. Your margin, that's the gap between your cost and your price. Simple enough. But the opportunity to raise prices, the real business potential, lies in the gap between your current price and the customer's perceived value. You know, if your cost price, you're losing money. If your price value, nobody buys. You need price to be comfortably below value, but well above cost.
So how do you actually find that perceived value? What's the trick?
Talk to your users. Ask them point blank. What problem are we solving for you? And users usually talk about value in about four main ways. Ways you should be pricing against. They want you to help them. 1, make more money. 2, reduce costs, save time, save headcount. 3, move faster, maybe launch a product quicker. Or 4, avoid risk compliance headaches, legal issues, that sort of thing.
Okay, so you listen for those value points.
Yeah, and then the ideal pricing benchmark, kind of the goal, is to incrementally raise your prices until customers start to complain a bit, but still pay. If they just accept your price immediately, no questions asked, you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table,
Yeah.
severely undercharging. You want them to pause, maybe think about it for a week, then come back and say, okay, fine, we'll pay it. You're still the best option. That's the sweet spot.
Okay, interesting. So, pricing insight number 4. Most startups are probably undercharging. That's got to be a tough pill for founders to swallow. But the logic is sound. A low price isn't a real advantage long term. Some big competitor can just slash prices and bleed you dry, whereas a higher price, it implies higher value. It lets you build a bigger moat because you can afford to spend more to get those valuable customers. And honestly, raising your price is often the simplest way to boost revenue. Doubling your price is way easier than doubling your customer base.
Totally. And this fear people have that you can't raise prices later, it's usually overblown, it's relatively painless if you handle it smartly. You can grandfather in existing customers at the old rate, maybe. Or you give plenty of notice, and crucially, you increase the product's value at the same time. I mean, look at Netflix. They keep raising prices on, 221 million subscribers?
Yeah.
As long as they keep adding value, more shows, better features, it's the easiest lever for them to pull for revenue growth.
So when is it okay to charge a lower price then? Are there exceptions?
Yeah, but only really in exchange for something specific and valuable to you, like being the very first beta user and giving critical feedback, or getting a really impressive logo on your website for social proof. Or maybe if you have a clear path to significantly increase that price when their contract renews. Otherwise, price high.
Got it. Okay, final pricing insight, number 5. Keep it simple. Complexity is the enemy of conversion, right?
Right.
If your pricing page looks like a spreadsheet with 5 buttons, crossed out prices, weird tiers, people just get confused or give up. It adds friction.
Exactly. Simple, clear plans. Think about GitLab's pricing page, usually pretty straightforward, low friction, easy decision.
Which brings us, I think, to this segment story. We have to end on this because it's just the ultimate lesson in pricing bravery, isn't it? They were engineers, right? Gave the product away for free initially. Then when they finally decided they had to charge something to impress investors, they sort of sheepishly asked for $120 a year.
Yeah, $120 a year. And get this, customers actually told them the super low price made them worry. Like, could this product really be trusted if it was that cheap? If I'd been one of those engineers, hearing what happened next would have terrified me.
Me too. So what happened?
They hired a sales advisor. And this advisor basically pushed them hard to quote $120,000 a year for enterprise deals, 100,000 times more. They were obviously scared stiff, but they did it. They quoted it. The customer negotiated naturally, but they ended up settling at $18,000 a year.
18,000. That's still 150 times their original $120 price.
Exactly. And that shift in philosophy, that bravery, eventually led to Segment being acquired by Twilio for $3.2 billion. The lesson is just crystal clear. You will never get the price you deserve if you aren't brave enough to actually ask for it.
Wow. That is the data-driven takeaway right there. Powerful story. Okay, so let's recap this deep dive real quick. Structurally, the advice is stick to one of the big 3 models, SaaS, transactional, or marketplace. Focus like a laser on high retention. Remember that 5% churn difference, it's life or death.
Yeah.
And build those defensible moats, whether it's network effects, lock-in, or deep tech.
Yep. And on pricing, price on value, not your costs. Be brave enough to charge what you're worth. Find the right order of magnitude quickly. Don't sweat the small changes early on. And keep testing, keep iterating based on how customers react.
So here's the final thought for you. If Netflix can successfully, repeatedly raise prices on 221 million subscribers, what value are you potentially leaving on the table right now just because you might be afraid to ask your earliest customers to pay what you are actually worth? Something to think about as you define your next price point. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.